How can anyone still doubt President Ibrahim Traoré? This man isn't merely leading a country, he's spearheading a movement, a living symbol of resistance in a world where African nations are too often dictated to. Traoré refuses to follow that script. His vision is rooted not in reliance on foreign aid or borrowed influence, but in empowering his people to stand on their own. At the heart of his mission is a clear objective: to build a Burkina Faso that is independent, proud, and free from foreign control. But change of this magnitude doesn't come from passionate speeches alone. It requires bold, sometimes unconventional action. And one of the most striking moves he's made was transforming 8,000 volunteer defense fighters VDPs into agricultural workers. At first glance, the decision seemed odd. Soldiers trained for combat were suddenly handed farming tools. But behind this was a strategy rooted in wisdom. Traoré understands something critical. True independence is not only about removing foreign troops, it's about feeding your people, cultivating your own land, and shaping your future from within. This initiative reflects a deeper understanding of Africa's challenges. Across the continent, hunger remains a crisis. Children sleep with empty stomachs while economies are stalled by food insecurity. For all the global progress in science and technology, many African nations still struggle with basics: electricity, roads, clean water, and most urgently, food. President Traoré sees that until these foundational needs are met, no true development can occur. That's why he's prioritized food production above all else. This vision connects deeply with the legacy of Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary icon of Burkina Faso, who once declared that a country that cannot feed itself is a slave. Traoré has taken those words to heart. Since taking power, he has rolled out a series of programs to shift the nation away from dependency and toward productivity. One of the boldest so far, turning fighters into farmers. The results are already visible. 2,000 VDPs completed a 3-month intensive training program in agriculture under a national initiative known as the Presidential Program for Agricultural Production and Food Self-Sufficiency. But they weren't just taught how to grow crops, they were trained in civic values like solidarity, environmental care, and national service. These individuals are not merely food producers. They are nation builders, driven by a higher sense of purpose. What makes this transformation even more powerful is the age of those involved. Most of these fighters turned farmers are young. For too long, Africa's youth have been praised as the future while being sidelined in the present. Traoré is breaking that pattern. He recognizes that Africa's greatest wealth isn't hidden in its mines or oil reserves, but in its people, especially its youth. With proper leadership and opportunity, they can drive the continent forward. Tragically, many African nations continue to lose their young minds to the West year after year. Talented youth leave in search of jobs and dignity abroad, strengthening foreign economies while their home countries are left weaker. Traoré wants to reverse that. He's offering young people a reason to stay, to invest their energy in their homeland. Through this initiative, these youth are no longer just surviving, they're building, not for personal gain, but for collective pride. When the first 2,000 graduates completed their training, the message from the government was loud and clear. At the graduation, Minister of State Ismail Sambi delivered a speech titled Self-Sufficiency, a Path of No Return. In that address, he outlined the expectations. Burkina Faso's youth must now reject laziness, incompetence, and betrayal of the nation. These weren't empty words, they were a rallying cry, affirming that the country's new direction is irreversible. This agricultural transformation is not only about food, it's about survival, identity, and security. In regions plagued by terrorism, unemployment, and desperation are fertile ground for radical recruitment. Extremist groups exploit these vulnerabilities, recruiting young men with offers of money or meaning. But by giving young people farming tools instead of weapons, and a purpose instead of despair, Traore is severing that dangerous cycle. This is not just about cultivation, it's about prevention. These young farmers are still trained defense fighters. They can protect their communities as well as feed them. It's a dual role that blends patriotism with practicality. These individuals are defending Burkina Faso with shovels and rifles alike, not to dominate others, but to secure their nation's future. And President Traore didn't stop with the VDPs. In another unprecedented move, his government began converting prison inmates into farmers. Rather than letting prisoners sit idle and disconnected, the government is transforming correctional facilities into productive agricultural centers. The philosophy is simple: even those who've made mistakes can contribute to the country. A visit by the Minister of Justice to the Baporo prison revealed the remarkable success of this initiative. The prison, once just a holding facility, now functions as a vibrant farm. Rows of maize, wheat, and rice stretch across the compound, tended by inmates who now see their labor as a path toward redemption. Many even guard the fields themselves, taking pride in the crops they grow. A new law now offers inmates the chance to reduce their sentences through agricultural work. 1 month of farming can equate to up to 3 months off their sentence. This policy does more than reduce prison overcrowding. It restores purpose to lives once thought lost. Inmates gain practical skills, self-respect, and a second chance to rejoin society as productive citizens. As this model expands, hundreds more prisoners will be brought into the program, with new facilities being built to train them in farming techniques. The country is not just growing food, it's cultivating transformation. All of this points to a singular goal: total food independence for Burkina Faso. Traore knows the stakes are high. Hunger is not just a humanitarian issue, it's a political weapon. Countries that can't feed themselves remain vulnerable to pressure and manipulation from those who can, and the numbers back him up. In 2022, over 140 million Africans faced acute food insecurity. 1 in 5 people on the continent went to bed hungry. Despite vast land and favorable climate, Africa remains heavily dependent on food imports and international aid. But with visionary leadership and investment in agriculture, that reality can change. The truth is, smallholder farmers across Africa still rely on outdated tools and minimal support. Government programs are often delayed, underfunded, or mismanaged. Traore's plan is different. It is structured, accountable, and implemented with urgency. His government launched the Emergency Project for Agricultural Production, with support from the African Development Bank, allocating over $38 million toward high-quality seed distribution and training for hundreds of thousands of farmers. The results were impressive. Rice output rose from 280,000 to 326,000 metric tons. Millet jumped from 97,000 to more than 1.1 million. Tomato harvests increased by 45,000 metric tons. These are not just numbers, they are the beginning of a new era. Traore's broader agripastoral offensive aims to transform both crop and livestock production, linking farmers to markets and increasing national revenue. His fight for food sovereignty isn't a side project, it's the core of his presidency. And perhaps what's most impressive is that this revolution is happening not in Europe or Asia, but in one of Africa's most challenged nations. For many, Traore is reviving a dream once believed lost, the dream of Thomas Sankara. But this time, the dream is not being chased alone. The entire nation is rising with it. From youth to prisoners to farmers, they are reclaiming dignity, one seed at a time. The future is growing, and the world is watching.